Okay, good morning. Let's call the meeting to order. Let's start with a roll call. Don Cash, District 3.
Brady Mertens, District 2.
District 1 present.
Notice the meeting was properly posted on August 14th, 2023. Item number 1 is approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second. All in favor, aye.
I abstain.
Okay. Item number 2, discussion and possible action related to a request for funds through the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. Nikki,
Good morning.
good morning.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Just fine. This is a grant that was presented through the Oklahoma District Attorney's Office. And in conjunction with us and the Department of Mental Health, we would like to apply for funding for the county. So, do you guys have any questions?
Do you want to go into a little bit more detail with us?
So this was a state bill that has kind of been going on since the last legislative session. Senate Bill 844, and it became effective July 1st. And what that is savings related from cost from implementation from the Oklahoma Smart Reform Act. And so these savings are being allocated to counties to provide services to certain programs outlined in the Senate bill. And so we would like to apply for funds related to some of those categories outlined in the Senate bill 844.
What are the dollar figures and what's the schedule?
So we don't have an exact amount on that just yet because the legislature has not released the amount of money that they are going to give, the savings amount. And the time frame is that we should know something by the end of the week. We should have more information. They're going to release the release for funds or request for funds. They're going to release that this week, and we'll have a little bit more information on exactly how much we can apply for, um, what we can use those funds for, and what programs we're actually going to use those funds for within the county.
Any other questions, Nikki?
No, I just that our office is very supportive of using these funds to help with our mental health and drug and treatment courts and diversion programs. And I think the DA's office, Kelly, has worked on a proposal that once the portals opened up, can be submitted to do that. I think the one thing that we might need to see prior to the BOCC taking action is that detailed plan. As Nikki mentioned, the portal's not open yet, so the specific detailed parameters around using the funds haven't been outlined just yet. But broadly speaking, it's treatment programs, diversion programs, educational related activities, some housing, and I think in briefly speaking with Kelly, their proposal is going to encompass several of the permitted uses. Maybe she could speak a little bit more to it, but
We have a representative from the DA's office. Would you like to address us? Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Basie, Assistant DA. I'm the supervisor over the diversion programs for the DA's office. And I'm so happy to be here today. It's a culmination of many years of wonderful support from the county to get our diversion programs where they are. We have 9 diversion programs. Specifically, last year, the Senate had put in, the legislature had put in one of the requirements of our programs is that we shall adhere to best practices. Best practices, that was joy to our ears because best practices requires us to have certain ratios of personnel in certain places so that we can have better outcomes for our people. Our people are those that have mental illness who are criminally involved, criminal justice involved, or people with high substance use disorder and high criminogenic risk. So these are the people who are most at risk of reoffending if we don't intervene. 3 of our programs are that. 2 of our programs are mental health. One is high monitoring, that's our DUI court. Then we have our misdemeanor diversion court, and then we have community sentencing, which is a gap filler for those that don't fit into those programs. That is post adjudication. All that to say that when best practices was put in, there were conversations between Senator Thompson and I about how much money we actually needed to be able to make our diversion programs adhere to best practices. And the total amount needed was 6.7 million in a very detailed platform that I had written for him that included best practice standards, why we needed it, what the ratios were, the number of people we have. And so he wrote the bill, and then when it came out, Loft is in charge of figuring out exactly what's written here. It's per this Oklahoma Smart Justice Reform Act, which is basically when they decided to make simple possession a misdemeanor. The idea was that the savings from sending people to the Department of Corrections would be used for diversion courts, because we're the ones who keep, I don't know if you know, but the people we take were headed to Department of Corrections, and instead of that, we're bringing them into our programs. We save the taxpayers millions of dollars. We've saved over, I think the numbers, don't quote me, but in the tens of millions of dollars, and I do know that for sure, that we've saved the taxpayers just in Oklahoma County alone from diversion. So that money is coming to us through Senate Bill 844 via State Question 781, which is the Oklahoma Smart Justice Reform Act. We do have a detailed, very detailed plan. We've brought it down from 6.7 million to what we expect it to be, which is probably going to be between 2 and 3 million, because statewide we know that the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency, LOFT, has allocated about 12.5 million to the whole state. That's going to be divvied out per county population, which is an excellent idea. And so we know that our county is going to get between 2 and 3 million. So we're taking our $6.7 million need and we're taking it down to what we are allowed to get. We're putting it together as a package, and we're going to give that to the commissioners before tomorrow's meeting so that they can have an idea of where we are right now. We have had conversations with Department of Mental Health, who is charged by the statute to write the RFP platform so that all counties, the senator was very specific, he wants the counties to be more involved. So the counties are the ones who are going to ask for the money through DMH, Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. The platform's been written, it's at OMES, and it's also at Loft, and it's going to come back. It should be out, like Nikki said, by the end of the week. And once that comes out, we will fine tune our proposal that I'm going to give you today. That'll be fine tuned based on what they're offering. I was just in a meeting with DMH this morning, a coffee from 8:30 to 9:30, and we talked about it again, and they're just really excited to get us the money. I do want you to know that when it comes out, whatever we ask for through the commissioners will be a collaborative effort with Department of Mental Health. They've told us that they're not going to line item things out. Like if we're asking for a certain type of personnel and the RFP didn't allow for that, they're just going to come in and say, hey, Kelly, here's what we'd like to look at number 31 and see what you think about switching that over to something else. And so we're going to collaborate and make sure that it all works out so that for the benefit of the county. I just love that we have the support that we do. That was a long answer to your short question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's very helpful. Thank you for your leadership. I know you have been very active in this space for a long time, and we appreciate all the dialogue and the help. I was familiar with part of that. I wasn't familiar with the Loft role in this bill, but it sounds like it's coming together nicely. And but I did. So you're presenting at the next BOCC meeting, assuming this moves forward. You're ready to go with that, but we're still working on the details. Is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, and it's tomorrow morning, so I'll get you that as soon as I leave. I'll get you the detailed outline so the commissioners can look at it and see what they're voting on tomorrow. But it's the idea of the ask really for tomorrow, and not just the details of all the parts of it.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, just, again, the board will hear this prior to knowing the final details. So I think the board needs to consider authorizing Nikki and Kelly to refine that proposal to come into conformance with any of the sections of the application. So modifying it, maybe take something out if necessary, putting it back in. But we're gonna see it tomorrow before we know the exact parameters. So just that. caution.
We're gonna see it in concept tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes,
And
today.
And I think the idea is for them to ask for approval to submit. So conceptually, based upon that conception. Yep.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
for your time.
Thank
today.
you.
Do we have a motion on item number 2?
Would recommend that we would give our recommendation to the BOCC that we conceptually approve the request for funds under Senate Bill 844.
The second. Items been moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye. I got it. Yeah, sorry. Not used to doing that.
Motion carries. Item number 3, discussion of possible action regarding policies, processes, procedures, and status reports relating to the planning oversight and administration of the grants program. Nikki?
Thank you.
Is this what is attached?
So what this is just a snapshot of kind of what we're going to go over today. And what that is and what we're doing today and what I'm doing today and why I'm here before you is to kind of explain to you what the grants department is, who I am, what I do, who I serve, and why we do what we do. And so my name's Nikki Morton, and I'm the grant administrator. I've been here for about 9 months, and in this 9 months, I've been able to assess the organization as far as grant readiness, and it's been a journey, and it's been really fun. So I'm also here to present to you guys the thought of having a grant steering committee. A grant steering committee would be comprised of all 3 of your districts and a expert matter on any grant that we are trying to steer at the moment. We would provide, or they would provide, or help me provide you guys important feedback from our stakeholders and about our stakeholders and about the needs of our county. The grant steering committee would add, remove, and review all grants on our grants watch list, which is attached to the items that I gave you today that you can take a look at. And what that does is that helps me begin the vetting process for grants to be considered for the county. It helps me know exactly where we are, and if a department has approached me with an idea, it allows me to understand the readiness of where they are with the grant, the readiness and scale of their understanding of what it takes to submit a grant. I'm trying to outline processes to make this easy for us to be successful. And one of those things that I've noticed that we really need to start to kind of think about as we're going forward and applying for funding is that I feel like the grants department needs at least 30 days in advance for any grant that is being presented. I need time to research. I need time to look at it. I need to make sure that we actually qualify for the funding and that we have all the necessary parts to make it possible. For example, the partnerships, the collaborations that are needed right now with a lot of the funding and the requests that are coming out. Collaboration is a really, really, really huge part of being successful. And I've taken a lot of note to that. And I have put a lot of time into building those community resources through the county and through learning the needs. I also would like to learn more about the needs from our each individual departments, because I feel that through collaboration, through all collaborations through the departments, we would be really successful. And it separates the silos of that department only getting grants for that program. If we as an organization is able and are able to apply for funding, then the trickle down effect will be that our departments and programs will be successful. So it's really important for us as an organization to start building our grant credit worthiness, and understand that grants build off of each other. So, for example, there was something called a Safe Routes to School grant. And that Safe Routes to School grant had different stages. You could plan something, you could build something, or you could just get IT assistance with it. Well, if you start with the planning process, then they see that you are able and you understand how to implement the entire process, and they help you with that. They make sure that you have all of your NEPA, or they make sure that you have all of the small things that you have to, they make sure that your project is shovel ready. They prepare you for a shovel ready project. And so I feel like if we go for these grants or these types of grants, it will help the organization be extremely successful in the future. So just building grant credit worthiness. It's important for us to really centralize the grants department. And during my assessment, I found that there were many other departments that received grants. Many other departments. And so it's really great that they receive that funding, but it's also really important for me to know about all of the funding that's being received throughout the county, because it can affect other funding that we might want to apply for as an organization. So just making sure that we're all collaborating and that we're all communicating about the funding that we're receiving is going to be really helpful for us to be successful in the future. And that just goes to just our internal processes of understanding that Micah plays a role in my grants. She's in finance, but she has to understand and she has to know everything that I'm doing. And she's in finance. Who would think that she would have anything to do with grants? Well, she's a huge part of it. IT setting up, the program for me to be able to manage and administer the grants. Well, that comes from the IT department. That comes from Augie helping me set up my Munis and being able to be effective and use the grants program that we already pay for. So there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to applying for a grant or just being ready to apply for a grant. It takes collaborations between us all. Um, so I feel like, I need to say, how do I serve the people of Oklahoma County? How do I serve um, this organization effectively? Well, I feel that it would be beneficial for everyone and a lot easier for us to take a bite off of, the bigger picture if we had categories. And so I feel that I've split up these categories, or I've created these categories based off of the needs and the assessment that I've already done over these 8 months with the county. And the categories are as follows: facilities and infrastructure, social services, criminal justice, community and nonprofit, transportation, and active transportation. I feel that I have direction working within these parameters, and it allows you guys and it allows the BOCC to understand which direction I'm traveling. And it also allows the organization as a whole to know how they can contact me and reach out to me if they need me. It gives them just a blueprint to work from. The next steps that I would like to get going with the help of Joe would be great. Is that really need a project list of shovel ready projects throughout the county. Um, that's helpful. That helps me prioritize the needs of the county, and it helps me prioritize um, which funding to go for first. Um, a project list with shovel ready projects would be great, and a list of all of the grants that are being received throughout the county from the different departments. I know that juvenile engineering, emergency management, the sheriff's department, the library, and the DA offices, they are all independently writing grants on their own. I feel as if I'm the grant administrator, I should understand what's going on about those grants. It's great that they want to do the grants, but I feel that there still needs to be a vetting process throughout all of this. So just being involved and being transparent in what we're doing is really, really helpful. And that is all that I have for you today. Do you guys? Oh, and I submitted with you guys 3 grant opportunities that the county is currently working towards, or the county is currently engaging in. We've already submitted an application, or we are somewhere in that process of trying to receive that funding. And those are the 3 grants that we are working on currently. So if you guys have any questions for me, I would love to elaborate on anything.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Move to receive this document. I don't think it was attached.
It was not. Second. We have a motion to receive the document. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
I saw Colton shaking his head yes when you were saying you'd like a list of shovel-ready opportunities, and I love that, and I love that all the districts are sort of, or you've spoken with many of us with that need, and you've heard me say since we started working together that going for those ready-to-go projects are also high on our list. I really appreciate your work. I think you know that District 3 is a huge supporter of your work in this program generally. That said, coming to P&G, I think is great. I'm not necessarily in support of creating a new subcommittee, but functioning under the existing strata that we have, I have no objection to, and appreciate you coming forward with that today.
Dawn,
Yes, sir.
if I might, a couple of things. Nikki, thank you. I would like to see this item as a continuing item on our agendas here at P&G. That way, Nikki has an avenue to get information or to tell about opportunities that we might have. So I'd like to see this as a continuing item. And then following up kind of on what you said, rather than creating a new committee, perhaps we just utilize this group as that committee for Nikki. We all have representatives or alternates, so that might be the best means at this point in time, and then look to do something in the future. Lastly,
Agreed.
I think to help Nikki, and she mentioned these categories, that those would be her focus, at least initially. So that would be the infrastructure. That I kind of broke that down into roads and bridges, transportation related, then facilities being our actual buildings, the social services, criminal justice, community nonprofit. I think those areas, focusing on those at least initially, because we're new at this, might help you and help us become more focused so that we can achieve what you were talking about and build that grant credit. So I'd like for us to focus in those areas. And then the other thing in applying for all these grants is, making sure that we have the statutory authority in which to do. That way your time is not wasted or in an area that we ultimately can't, no matter how worthy, participate in. So those are my thoughts, and I really appreciate Nikki and her time and putting this together. I think it's long overdue.
Agreed, and I would also want us to support you in gathering. I appreciate your point of gathering the data of all of the different grants that funnel through the county. That you certainly, at least at minimum, need to be aware of that so that you can track that. I appreciate your background and viewpoint that these build on one another, and I know that you take the position, and I agree that the relationships also help build, and the partnerships are critical to what you do and to us being successful in what you do. And so I appreciate you highlighting that to us and these concerns. I have no objection to this being a committee that helps guide. It's a very good point where the structure exists. We're all represented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion outside of accept report for number 3? Did you want to make a motion, Phil?
Do we want to utilize, in what Nikki laid out in terms of a grant steering committee, this body? Okay, so that would be my motion. And then, as Nikki mentioned, subject matter experts that she would help us to determine to help take part in these discussions. So, okay, that would be the first.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to treat P&G as the steering committee. All in favor, aye.
Aye. And then I guess the second motion would be to instruct Nikki to focus on those categorical areas that were outlined. Infrastructure, roads, bridges, transportation related, infrastructure, facilities related, social service, criminal justice, community and nonprofit. And I think that was everything, wasn't it, Nikki?
Is that in this? Where is the list that you're?
I can provide you with the list. I didn't put the categories in the slide, but I can enter that in for next P&G meeting so that you have a list of those.
Well, and we'll have that minute. I like the motion. I didn't know where you were reading that from.
Yeah. Do you want me to repeat them?
No.
Okay. Just Joe, just so you transportation and active transportation. Those are both transportation related, but one is more towards walkability for the community. And so I just want to make sure that we understand that there's a distinction between the two, that both areas are worthy for me to work in.
Trails and things of that
Yes.
nature. Certainly.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, we have a motion. I'm happy to second.
Well, just to be clear, this motion is just to kind of establish those categories that she mentioned.
To focus on those categories at this time.
Okay, I can second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nikki. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding direction to the IT department. Gentlemen?
Good morning. A few weeks ago, Rich and I were asked to attend a meeting with the court clerk's office over a records kind of digitization project, if you will, with BIS to convert all of their paper files into digital files. And what we're here for is to seek some guidance as to what level of involvement we should be in. Since we work for the BOCC, we want to make sure that we're not overstepping our bounds before we enlist too much time and energy into assisting in this. So that's what we're seeking guidance for.
I'm all about the digitization of the records. Do you have any more details? Like, is there cost or time associated?
Well, I've compiled some preliminary numbers on a few different ways to do it based on what BIS's diagram was. And so it's not that we're here asking for dollars. That's not it. What we're asking for is, since we work for the BOCC and not the court clerk's office directly, we're here to see how far we should be involved with this.
The court clerk is a very unique
It is.
officer, right?
Yes.
Part of their function is a state function.
Correct.
Part is county.
Correct.
These records are, which ones?
The ones in the warehouse.
No.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know
Which
the answer to that
umbrella
question.
does it fall under?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
So we have, I've looked at, but it's been several months ago, a records retention policy capturing county records. I assume it is in conjunction with that. Is that correct? No.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's in conjunction with that. This is just taking records that they have, current court records and such, and just digitizing them so that the public can access them, order them through the web or whatever, not and save trips down here, which would reduce traffic in the building.
Similarly to what the county clerk accomplished.
Correct.
That might be helpful for me to just maybe have a written proposal or some of the more distinct details before being able to give you feedback.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions?
No, I think.
Okay. I can.
Well, where are the records going to preside? How are they going to be accessed? Is that through our website? Is that through OSCN?
It would not be as it
I think
stands right
that's
now.
the information that we're seeking.
Correct. Right. It would not be through OSCN. It would not even be through our website, although I suppose we could probably link to it. The way it looks like is documents would get scanned. They would get uploaded to a server, either on site or in the cloud. And then a nightly job would be to essentially upload that to the BIS grouper, I believe is what it's called, cloud server. And then I believe it gets served up from there.
And this would be a backwards looking, perspective only, both?
It would be, I would assume so. It would be taking the millions of records they have and digitizing them. They've already started this, I believe, and I'm sure Rick can speak to how far they've gotten with it. What our question is there's a lot of ways to cut this. You can, servers can be put here in the annex in our data center, which leads to the question of who should manage them. Should it be us? Should it be the AOC? Should it be someone else that's hired? They could be housed at the warehouse. Okay, the current diagram that BIS drew up was putting the scanners out there at the warehouse where they are, sending that traffic over here into our data center and then uploading it through our internet connection to BIS's grouper program. That can be done that way. It can also be done straight from the warehouse and take us completely out of the loop. The question is, should we be the ones managing those servers? Should we be the ones managing those circuits, the firewalls? I don't know that the question is who's going to pay for it necessarily. I believe the court clerk's office is probably fine for paying for this stuff, but who's going to maintain it? But that's the program, Don, to answer your question. I mean, that's essentially, I could give you a diagram that shows it to you, but the diagram I give you might not be the best way to do it. It's just a proposal from BIS as to how they would suggest doing it.
Okay, and also knowing the answer to Joe's question as to which documents exactly. And
Right.
again, the answer I heard you give, but tell me if this is wrong, is that
Okay.
you're talking about both a process that would capture and preserve on a prospective basis as well as digitizing things that we simply have warehoused,
Correct.
old documents.
Right. And we're happy to do whichever the board directs us to do. We're happy to be involved in whatever way, shape, or form. If you tell us to go manage it and do it, we'll do it. We'll do it a great way. We just, like Joe said, it's a little bit of they're a unique scenario because of, we don't traditionally do their IT support other than their telecommunications, so.
And then another question I can foresee me eventually having, and I'm just going to be listening right now, is as the new kid on the block, sort of in this space, as we answer those questions about existing documents that have been there for a while and incoming. I confess I don't know exactly our standard operating procedure as to the different types of documents and how we manage them today. So if this is a change in course, not just, I assume resources will not just be cost, but time, and as you pointed out, who's associated with that.
Sure.
Knowing what that plan is would help me give feedback or what the
Right.
possibilities are.
Okay, so
I need to boil it down. What are we talking about? Are we talking about county records, which would fall under a certain records retention? Or are we talking about state records, which may fall under the guidelines of AOC or some?
Right.
That, I think if
That's
we
the
know
question.
that information, then we can help you and help them.
Right.
We all want to see records digitized.
Sure.
It's a matter of
whose are they?
who's, yeah, right, yes. Because we can use county funds for county purposes, but we can't use county funds for state purposes.
Right. And we don't have that answer, so.
Okay.
But if that's the answer the board needs, then that's,
Probably best served to go through the court clerk for that answer.
yes. Okay, any other questions?
None for me.
Greg, do you want to?
Anyone else have any other
Yeah,
questions?
come on.
Hi, Rick.
Mr. Buchanan?
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Several years ago, the legislature passed a records preservation fund that was attached to civil cases. And it's generated quite a bit of money, but not like the county clerk gets. It was a little less than what we expected. The court clerk's office has no IT expertise. That's why we went outside and bid it out with BIS to bring this in-house. We started with divorce records, I believe. We haven't even put a dent in it. We've been working on it for 3 years. When I say a dent, there's just hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of documents. That warehouse is full of millions of documents and pages, far beyond what the county clerk, I was here when the county clerk started, and I think they had 23, 26 million pages to scan. Ours is much more vast than that. It's even hard to put a number on how many millions of pages. Eventually, our goal is to have the public have access to marriage license, divorce records, court cases if they want, civil matters, criminal matters, whatever they are, as long as they're not sealed. Then we're just trying to take that big building down the street with all those books that are over there stored with lots of information so the public can have access to it. We're not in the business of IT. We're in the business of taking care of the courts. So while those records, you all pay for a building. The VOCC pays for rent on that building. But our IT is State Supreme Court Network, or OCIS. So we just asked for a little bit of help, and you all were kind enough to let them come meet with us and BIS and discussing what we would need to eventually take it in-house. Right now, BIS, we're using their equipment, and we have staff that assist them and are being trained. But eventually, we want to buy scanners and the computers so that we can take care of it and concentrate on the money that is generated by the records preservation fund, keep it in-house and do it, and we'll take care of the work. We haven't decided ultimately where it's going to be stored, whether it's through Grouper, which is partners with BIS, or take it through Amazon or Microsoft or whatever. Those are decisions that eventually we're going to have to make. But we're talking that big building down the street across from the jail is full of books that we want to get digitized. It's going to be several years worth of work. Any questions?
So it sounds like you're asking for technical assistance, not us to maintain or operate any of the system. Is that?
Well, if it's a server that ultimately resides on site here, we don't, I can't even change the oil in my car. So, we just don't have IT staff that's capable, nor do I think that Mr. Warren or any court clerk would want to be in that business.
And the fund you're speaking of, Rick, I tried to do a little quick research, is in Title 28. It's Section 31.3, the Court Clerk's Record Management and Preservation Fund.
I believe that's it. Off the top of my head, I'm going to trust you with that, Joe.
Pardon?
I'm going to trust you with that.
Which references other things.
So we do, it's kind of a quandary for us because we're not going to generate enough money from this fund to, I don't think, to maintain anything but bringing it in-house. So we don't know what scanner to buy. We don't know what server to buy. We can't set up the Wi-Fi and all that, and the cabling that's needed for that, and the fiber and the bandwidth and all that. We don't know. We just don't know. So we're asking for help. And it may be something that you all ask the district attorney's office to opine on that. We're just in a situation to where we're asking for help. And these are the smartest guys I know when it comes to IT stuff.
Sure. Well, thank you. That I think helps narrow it. For me, I'm still going to probably need to have a learning curve before making any decisions. But thank you for coming forward with us today. And we may have more questions and certainly need more details in the future.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Do we need to take any further action on item number 4? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move to item number 5, discussion of possible action regarding ARPA. Danielle?
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, thank you. I have a couple of updates for you and some papers.
Thank you.
Motion to receive document?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
I know it looks a little bit word heavy, but it's a little bit more simple. It gets into how things become eligible, whereas it gets really wordy. So the general update on this is the Treasury Department has put out guidance on some new eligible uses for ARPA funds. There are 3 categories. We'll walk through them very briefly at a high-level overview. We can get into them later if you have projects that you kind of want to think about that would fit. But the 3 overarching projects or categories, the first one is for emergency relief from natural disasters, and you'll see it in these first boxes labeled number 1. I'm kind of just working down in that direction. So the way that interim final rule is defining that is they're saying that an emergency relief as assistance that is provided in the need to save lives and protect property and public health and safety. And this would help lessen and avert threats of imminent or potential catastrophe in the future. This could be related to things like a hurricane, a tornado, high water, things like that. there is a long list, which you'll see in this box. I know it's really hard to read, they're small words, so I will email it to you. And that will include all of your kind of different things that it could be used towards. So firefighting, flood mitigation, and all of those will fall within that emergency relief from natural disasters. Then there's a second category, which is the surface transportation projects. That breaks down into 3 parts, and there's 3 different pathways in which something could be considered eligible within that. So the first one is going to be for supplementing surface transportation projects that are already receiving funds from the Department of Transportation. So you couldn't supplant the funds in this specific category. You have to be supplementing. If they're funding a project, you have to put funds towards that project. The second pathway would be for surface transportation projects that are not receiving funding from DOT. There are some additional kind of requirements going down from that, but that's just the general. And then the third one is for satisfying non-federal share requirements for certain transportation projects or repaying a loan provided under the TIFA programs. So there, under Pathway 3, there are specific requirements. That's what's in that box of which ones would be eligible. So which of your grants would be eligible, your fixed guideway capital investment groups, your mega grants. Those are what fall within Pathway 3. Something very, very, very important to note about the transportation projects is if you are going to fund any of them, if you find something that you're interested in, the expenditure deadline is September 31st of 2026, not December 31st, September 30th. So it's a different deadline, something to be aware of. That is also relevant in the third potential new use of funds, which is the Title I projects. So for Title I projects, these are your items that are related to community development block grants. So these activities are now eligible with certain requirements and limitations. Something to note limitation-wise, the intent behind these types of projects is kind of more community-wide, so it does preclude buildings or portions of buildings for general conduct of government business, general government expenses, political activities, purchases of equipment, or operating and maintenance expenses. So this is really more community geared than what we see maybe with like revenue replacement. Another thing with the Title I projects, they again have that expenditure deadline of September 30th of 2026 rather than December 31st. So just something to be aware of. A lot of these, if it's something you would be interested in, you are already likely in an agreement with the Department of Transportation on projects. So we have to work with them to determine what the cost sharing is and if it would be something that you would want to move forward with. You do have very limited funds left at this point. So we do want to update you because it's important for you all to know that there are new avenues now. But unless you have a project kind of at the forefront, I would continue with your reserve or putting things towards ongoing projects. So that's kind of the update on the final rule at the moment. Are there any questions related specifically to that?
Danielle, I've heard of the tranche fund.
Mm-hmm.
Can you discuss that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So that is actually going to be under item number 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, then.
Okay, cool. We'll wait. So that is the update on that. I'm going to update you on community projects. Yes.
Just quick.
Yeah.
In looking at this, cap for the amount is 10 million or 30% of the allocation. So
Mm-hmm.
had this been around at the start, we would have been looking at about $45 million that could have been utilized under these.
That's correct.
Is that right?
But it didn't come out until this month. Yeah.
We had already moved in a different.
Yeah, they just made this decision on August 10th. So
Okay. So if we were to avail ourselves of using these funds, would we go off of the total amount still?
yes, yes.
Okay.
So this is just, and I did review, thank you, what you sent us when that got finalized several days ago. These are tweaks to the final rule, guardrails for what we can spend the existing.
Right. This expands it. So everything else in final rule remains the same. Any eligible uses that we have previously used or previously discussed have not changed. Their requirements, their obligations, their reporting, all the same. This just now expands it in these 3 other paths.
Gotcha. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or actions on item number 5?
Just received the presentation.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And number 6, Danielle,
All
discussion
right.
of possible action regarding the LATCF.
So I'm gonna hand you some more papers. And again, I will email them to you, but wanted to get them in here.
Motion to receive document.
Second.
Aye.
Okay, so for the Local Assistance and Tribal Contingency Fund, the eligible uses are pretty broad. Something that is kind of an easy way to think about it is very similar to revenue replacement that the county has worked with. So these are funds that can be used on any governmental purpose except for lobbying activities. It cannot go towards any lobbying or political activity in that way, but this provides you a non-exhaustive list of examples. So provision of health services, capital expenditures on core facilities, things like schools, hospitals, childcare, infrastructure investments, long-term economic developments, and technology, things like that. So the county received $50,000 in the first tranche. While I'm here on site, we're going to request the second tranche, which is also $50,000. So in total, the county will receive $100,000, and it can be used, like I said, for pretty much any governmental purpose outside of lobbying. That ineligible use is laid out right there, and it looks like a long paragraph, but it's just saying don't lobby in many different ways. And then something to be aware of, there are reporting requirements as well with this, but it's an annual report rather than a quarterly report because it is significantly less funds than your large tranche of funds when it comes to ARPA. If you want to kind of talk through what would be eligible, if you have ideas, I'm happy to kind of work through those right now, or if you want to discuss those offline, that's fine as well. I know we've received some questions from each office on what this could be used for, whether it's for building improvements or for technology improvements. And generally the answer is going to be yes, which is great.
Did we not move to seek this at a previous meeting? We simply, again, did not discuss specifically how to allocate.
Right. So we haven't discussed how to allocate. We are seeking the funds. That is what I'm doing today. I have to physically go into y'all's treasury portal to request the funds, so I have to be on site to do it. So I will be requesting them today through y'all's
But
portal.
You will be doing that as a result of the vote we took.
Yes, last time. Yeah, I don't need direction to do that.
Okay, great.
The only thing that I would look for direction and for today is if you were going to decide what to do with the funds, but you may not be ready to do that, and that's totally fine.
Okay.
So the second piece of paper that I gave you, this comes straight from the Treasury Department, and it's just something we want you guys to be aware of as we're talking about funding. So they kind of did like a hot topics session, FAQ, and something to be aware of is that they are still, quote, evaluating inquiries when it comes to if a contractor or a subrecipient has to also obligate their funds by December 31st. So this is relevant to your subrecipients right now. The way that we have been doing it and would continue to do so is that when the county as the pass-through entity obligates the funds, that is the point of obligation, and that satisfies the need for obligation. Treasury is saying, we haven't decided, we're not sure yet if we are going to require that obligation at the subrecipient level. Currently, it is not, and so I think it is in the best interest to continue processing as we have been. Since we're so far along in the process and it hasn't changed and they haven't provided direct guidance, the way that we have been doing it is at the point of obligation from the county. But we did want to make you guys aware, that way it didn't come as a surprise or that there were any questions on that. That is coming from Treasury, but there's no direct answer. So I unfortunately can't share a more direct answer either. But that would be relevant to your community applicants who all attended their training. Of the 19 applicants, we only have 4 who haven't shared over some of their updated information that we requested. One of them let us know that on the front side, though. They have a budget meeting at the end of the month, and we have sent reminder emails to all of them to get us the information so that we can get the subrecipient agreements to you guys. The goal would be onto the 12th P&G meeting and then put them concurrently on the 13th BOCC meeting for next month and get those through so that they can start receiving their funds. But that is relevant. Wanted you guys to be aware of that in this process as well.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
It's your recommendation that we continue to follow the process we have been utilizing. Is it not in our best interest, possibly I'm not suggesting we take this action immediately, but that we be prepared to take a more conservative action and go ahead and move forward in case they decide that that is not sufficient? And
If that's the way the board wants to move forward, that's fine. We will follow that direction. That is a policy decision for you guys to make. We'll do some small updates to the compliance framework and things like that if that's the way that you guys would like to proceed. We will need to just make sure that we update the subrecipients as well, that we're taking the more conservative approach, because as of right now, the point of obligation is when the county writes the check to the subrecipients. At that point, we're viewing that as obligated. And Treasury's definition of obligated is very loose as well. So they do say Treasury recognizes that recipients may obligate funds through means other than contracts or subawards. For example, in cases of payroll costs, in these circumstances, you would follow state or local laws and your established practice. So in the county, the point of PO or that check would suffice as the point of obligation.
Any other questions on item number 6? Nothing. And you don't need action from us because we've already taken action.
Right, unless you have a project that you want to take a vote on right now, but I don't believe that that is the case. But now you have the eligible, that's fine. Yeah, now you have the eligible uses to understand what they can be used on, and we can meet to discuss those further.
Excellent. Thank you, Danielle.
Dawn, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I had, Danielle had mentioned there had been several questions about some of the uses, and one of the questions that courts had asked if these fundings referenced in item 6 could be used on build out of courtrooms. And as you all know, we need new courtrooms, and we were told that it could be. So as you are considering that, I'd like for you to consider using those monies to help offset the requirement that the county has to provide courtroom space and office space for the judges.
Thank you, Renee.
Yes, so those types of building improvements generally are considered eligible under this as a government service.
Helpful knowledge. Thank you. Okay. Anything further on number 6? Very good. Thank you, Danielle. We will
Thank
move
y'all.
on to number 7.
Thank you.
Discussion of possible action regarding employees of the month. Ms. Karen?
Good morning. I put the nominations in front of you before the meeting started. We only had 2 this month, option A and option B. So, all right.
Second.
Brandy, did you get them?
I did not. There you go.
What if I want B and A?
If you want to be an A, is that what you said? I'm not going there, Joe.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's not what I said.
Yeah, I know. You can be option A when they nominate you.
Very good. Item number 8.
Jessica put this on here apparently from a meeting that a few years ago, the DA put a training class on for open meeting, record meetings. And most of the department heads attended that, to the best of my knowledge. So my thinking is they would like for us to, as department heads, to do some more training on how to not just fire somebody, but how to document it and get to the final stage where we could say, yes, they need to be terminated or they don't.
Including a risk assessment.
Including a risk assessment, yes. We do that. Since I've been doing it, we do that most of the time. Very rarely do we just terminate somebody without doing the risk assessment. For the most part, all of our department heads are in that line of doing the progressive write-ups, progressive counseling, and then coming, hey, do we have enough? That's when I prepare the risk assessment and send it to the DA's office. Our superintendents are there for the most part as well. So I'm not quite sure what training they want, unless just an overall brief training of what HR does. And I'm willing to let the DA, if they want to do a class, I'm good with that. Or we could find an outside company to come in and just do a 4-hour training, a 3-hour training for our department heads and for the superintendents. I think it's really important to include the superintendents in this because they are out there in the fields and not seeing, I don't get to see what they see.
But
But
just to be clear, this would be for all departments, all department heads.
all BOCC departments.
BOCC department.
Yes, I don't know about the other elected officials.
We could make this available if they wanted to avail themselves of that, though we can't require them, but
Right.
But we could make it available for them.
Yes, we could.
so KK, I kind of like the idea of looking for an outside entity that might provide a general overview of just best HR practices, you know, touching not only on documentation and discipline, perhaps termination, et cetera, but also just, you know, FMLA, what that is and what it isn't, ADA and reasonable accommodation and what that can or can't be. Just a broad overview, I think is a really good idea. And if you wouldn't mind to look to try to find something.
Okay.
And then come back and tell us what you found, and then we can work in conjunction with the DA's office as well on certain aspects, you know, what they need to see in that risk assessment,
Okay.
et cetera. But yeah, I think some general education would be beneficial. Let me know when that is so I can go.
Okay. I'll get you on the list.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank
Thank-
you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further on item number 8?
Just receive the discussion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have any citizen participation? None. Board comments?
No, thank you.
None.
No board comments? None from me. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Nope.